Floyd was murdered and got asked by a reporter, and I said, if we don't make changes now, I don't know if we're ever going to. The change that we want to see has not come.
This was the basis for the billions of dollars in damages. This was the basis for the defund the police. This was the basis for Chaz for CHOP. This was the basis for Black Lives Matter and the swindling of people who didn't know any better. This was the basis for that. So let me ask you this. George Floyd, we look at the scenario. Okay, what changes would you make? George Floyd. Come on. So over the weekend.
A moment of silence?
Shut up. No.
Wow.
I'll talk until Steven talks. If that.
And you guys know we covered this at length, and the story that you had been sold was not the. You all know that, right? I mean, we showed you the entire footage of him being arrested, being in the police car, asking to be taken out. They opened the windows. They gave him air conditioning. You know about his criminal rap, all of that. That doesn't change the fact that over the weekend, America mourned the loss of one of its greatest civil rights icons, if you were to hear the media tell it, George Perry Floyd Jr. It's always Jr.
At the Minneapolis intersection where George Floyd was murdered 5 years ago, a community commemorating its loss.
Wasn't much of a loss for the community.
We cannot remain the same after what we have experienced here, and yet there's so much resistance to change.
Well, you burn down your city, people become a little resistant.
Is that Target?
It is a Target.
Watch this.
And his son. And his life, like every life, held meaning. His death exposed the holes that are still in our justice and criminal institutions.
It's a Biden rally.
Dozens of people.
Where George Floyd was murdered and got asked by a reporter, and I said, if we don't make changes now, I don't know if we're ever going to. And
so step down.
That sense of urgency. And I'm 5 years later, recognizing that the change that we want to see has not come.
And you know what, before I move on here, let me ask you this real question. The left uses this to say, hey, we don't change now, we need to change. What change? Can you answer me? What change? Seriously, what change? You want the police to not, so we know what changes we've made, catch and release, right? Talk about cash bail, no cash bail, where people are basically part of a revolving door of violent offenders. Okay, what change? Oh, well, police shouldn't have guns, they should have tasers. Okay, but then you don't want them to have tasers, you don't want them to be able to use chokeholds, you don't want them to be able to kneel, so we've changed police. Defunding the police, which of course was a disaster anywhere that it was tried. Genuine question, what change would have stopped a serial violent offender drug addict from meeting his demise through the consequences of his own actions? And this is why it matters. People say, oh, the guy's dead, can't you? No, because this was the basis for the billions of dollars in damages. This was the basis for the defund the police. This was the basis for Chaz for CHOP. This was the basis for Black Lives Matter and the swindling of people who didn't know any better. This was the basis for that. So let me ask you this. George Floyd, we look at the scenario. Okay, what changes would you make? Genuine question, what changes can be made in this country to avoid that again without just becoming a police nanny state? That being said, no one's all bad, and it's the in-betweens that really tell the story of who you are. So we want to give you some of the in-betweens.
Is that how they started the court case?
Yes, on George Floyd.
No one's all bad.
Some fun facts on George Floyd. Fun fact number one, you may not know this, his cooking skills. So during the testimony at Derek Chauvin's trial, Floyd's brother highlighted the culinary skills of one Mr. George Floyd Jr.
He used to make the best banana mayonnaise sandwiches, and he used to make syrup sandwiches because George couldn't cook, he couldn't boil water.
Huh.
So it's a one-page cookbook.
He couldn't boil water.
Yes.
I might have held that one back.
This is like
that's a misspeak, right?
No, this is what they call a character witness. He wasn't even there at the actual incident. He was just there to build up George Floyd. Like, yeah, man, he's a great guy. I mean, he couldn't boil water, couldn't put. I'd say he put his pants on like you, one leg at a time, but he tried to put both of them on, and he always hop into the armoire. So I had to help him with his pants. But he made some mayonnaise and syrup sandwiches. That boy loved mayonnaise and syrup sandwiches. You ain't never had a better mayonnaise and syrup sandwich than George Floyd.
He never mayonnaise had and banana. That's disgusting. I never want to hear a black person call a white person a mayonnaise fiend ever again.
No,
oh, that's done.
What are you about to say, Noodles?
He never had the opportunity to discover fire.
No.
Colonizers.
At what point do you say, hey, think about this for a second. And I don't cook for him. I grill, okay?
Yeah.
I have never actually put together an entire meal myself, like in my house. I've done some things, like I'll do some things in the oven, but as far as like this dish going, this pan, this pot, no, I'll grill some meat and I'll make some rice. And that's about as much as I can do. And I really know my way around a barbecue. That being said, how lazy and how little of an effort would you have to be applying throughout your life to not know how to boil water? Don't tell me poverty. Cavemen could boil water. That's the boon of mankind. By the way, when we learned we could cook meat.
Yes.
When we learned that we wouldn't have to just roll the dice and risk food poisoning or not. Fire means food is now edible. It's sanitary. He didn't know how to boil water.
Just make it hot.
Put it in the microwave. I mean,
you really don't have to do much. You put water in a container and then add heat.
If it's not boiling, more hot.
More hot.
Yeah.
Hot over something hot. There are electric kettles. There's a microwave. If there's, if there's a dumpster fire like we saw all across the town, just use one of those. Eventually, it's going to heat up and boil. You don't have to.
It's easier to make water boil than it is to make it freeze.
Yes, it is.
I think.
Well, here's a fun fact number 2. He was mourned by a lot of people in the community who didn't know about him whatsoever until this was ginned up to be a national controversy. He was given quite an elaborate funeral where Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey broke down in what some would say were not really proportional tears to the occasion.
Joy comes in the
He's laughing.
And the reason he's laughing is because Floyd was buried in, an actual golden casket.
On brand.
It's crazy that it hasn't been dug up yet. I'm serious. Like I literally can't believe it.
It's not real gold.
To be fair, the funeral was quite touching. Mayor Frey was not the only one crying at the gaudy golden casket.
Wanna go tree climbing, Big G? His face hurts. And where's his speedball? He can't breathe without his speedball. Put his speedball in. Give him his speedball.
Jeez.
Why would you keep the speed?
That's so much worse than it was in my head.
Can we edit me laughing at it out?
It's a stimulant. It opens the airwaves just like bronchitors.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Primatine. Woo. Fun fact number 3. George Floyd had an uncanny ability to bridge racial divides. On June 9th, 2020, the date of his funeral, Representative Dan Crenshaw, a favorite, posted, "Rest in peace, George Floyd. You should be with us today." So see, he's creating common ground.
Well, not like with us, not like with, me personally.
I mean, I would
but
never
you
hang
should
out.
definitely still be out there.
I don't know. Don't speak for Dan. Dan is a big boy. He can speak for himself.
Please open your eyes, pal.
Oh.
Fun fact number 4.
I'm not going to apologize like that kid from SNL.
George's never say quit attitude. That is something we really appreciate about him. You know what? When people said, hey, probably not a good idea, he said, you cannot put your boundaries and constraints on me. I think I can do lethal amounts of drugs. Because he had an amazing amount of drugs in his system.
The little druggie.
His fentanyl levels in his system were 16.6 nanograms per milliliter. The meth was 19 nanograms per milliliter. Lethal doses can be as low as 3.5.
Of which one?
Super speedball.
Yeah. Fentanyl can be just 3.5. And so he was many, 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 many times over. But that had nothing to do with an untimely death. As any medical professional would have obviously been able to notice and treat him before things got out of control. We know that, but it doesn't happen in underserved areas. Yeah. Also, that would never happen here because, as Toolman knows, we hired a new nurse, and you know, he has his own way of doing things.
Yeah.
Let's check your hoo-ha. If it makes you happy, then it can't be that bad. Come aboard.
Hey, I think I need either athletic wrap or ibuprofen.
Well, easy there, boy. First, you'll be needing a diagnosis.
No, that's fine. I think I just sprained my ankle.
Well, why don't you leave the doctor into me? Don't worry, I'm a trained professional. I'm just testing your reflexes. Bye. And the good news is you passed. That's exactly how a man gone mad with scurvy would react.
No, I don't have scurvy. I just sprained my ankle.
Agreed. You'll hear no crumbs from me, boy. Looks like we'll have to amputate. Where's me room?
What's that over there?
That's one of those new ass it may fan pills, but I warn ya, there's no rum in it.
Yeah, okay.
Can you hear that, boy? No, it's the sound of the sirens. We mustn't listen. You mustn't listen, sweet Tiffany.
No, I called the cops on you.
Why would you do that?
Because you're practicing without a license.
A mutiny.
What?
That's all right. I respect it. Don't hate the pirate, hate the seas.
Yeah. Thanks.
Let's check your hoo-ha.
Really wants to check that hoo-ha.
The thing is, he does have a license. That's the scariest part.
Yeah, they let him go. He's still there.
He's still.
Where did he get it? The
He helped
Florida
me.
Keys?
Cleared it right up. I had a plantar's wart, not on my foot.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5. Fast fact number 5. St. George Floyd Jr.'s impact, of course, on his community, which will be felt really for many, many, many years to come. And by that, I mean 1,500 businesses destroyed, $500 million in damages, just really in his home state alone in the Twin Cities. And if you just look at the black communities who, of course, rallied around him, 334 storefronts in the largely black area of Lake Street, Minneapolis. They were boarded up within 1 year.
Even 1 year after
the riots. Well, within a year, and then I don't know if they were being looted afterwards. I know within 1 year there was 300 something businesses that had been boarded up.
Gone.
You had black businesses being looted nationwide. As a matter of fact, one could argue that they were probably the victims who most felt the consequences. Nationwide, you're looking at billions of dollars in damages, thousands of casualties. And if you go to a lot of these neighborhoods, they still haven't recovered. So you can thank the Kang, St. George Floyd. And you need to remember this too. Those are just, the in-betweens. But this is a guy, George Floyd. And I always say this too. Remember when we always thought that when the police body cam footage came out, we thought once police have body cameras, you're going to see the driving while black. You're going to see the cops pulling people over and berating them. You actually see far fewer stories now.
Oh,
you
yeah.
notice that?
My dad told me about that.
Yeah.
When they first came out, my dad's a police officer, and I asked him, I said, how does this make you feel? Does it make you uncomfortable that now you got it? He's like, no, I'm actually happy.
Right.
Most of the guys I know are happy because it's always he said, she said.
Yeah. Yep.
And no one ever wants to believe the cop. They always want to believe that we're doing something bad. We're doing something nefarious.
Yep.
And now we got the footage on it, and it's like, oh, no, look, he did this.
Well, it's that this doesn't exist in a vacuum. Let me ask you, if there was a situation like a George Floyd where a man died in police custody who had not been a violent criminal his entire life, who did not consume a lethal amount of drugs, who was not being handled with respect and care, being put in a cop car, being offered air conditioning, having the windows open until he requested, being put on the ground, who did not, for example, commit armed robbery with a child present in the house, who did not commit multiple counts of theft, trespassing, drug possession, potentially distributing drugs, who didn't do any of those things. If there was a single example of a black guy simply being pulled over because of the color of his skin, and don't you think the left would use that?
In a heartbeat, dude, right?
And we were told that that's what it was. We were told, in other words, when they say, hey, we need change, the change is predicated on this idea of we have an epidemic of driving while black, being shaken down, and black men being beaten by cops, period. But why don't we have any examples of that? We have to go to George Floyd. Let's go through all. George Floyd, okay. Let's say it's a gray area. Mike Brown knocked over a local bodega, liquor store, whatever you want to call it, then reached for Darren Wilson's gun and punched him in the head. Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, go through them. And at best, you argue, well, this is someone who was clearly in the process of committing a crime or who had a very long criminal history and things maybe went sideways. If there was a single example of what we have been told is the pandemic, meaning average middle-class black Americans being pulled over because of the color of their skin and beaten, you would see it everywhere. Instead, we have George Floyd. And that is the reason for the change. But instead of the change, what did we get? We got riots nationwide. You can thank George Floyd and those who want to keep the lie alive. That ended up being more dramatic than funny, we thought, Taps. But here's the thing.
I thought it was pretty funny.
It gives you an A or B. Hey, this is what George Floyd would have wanted, in which case he's a horrible person. Or this has nothing to do with George Floyd, in which case your communities are filled with horrible people. And by your communities, I mean largely black cities in this country that are egged on by Democrat mayors, in many cases, black mayors. These are places that have been controlled by the left. So is it what he would have wanted? What does that tell you about George Floyd? Or are you acting on your own behalf? What does that say about you? Fun fact, too, we know that George Floyd didn't die from a knee to the neck, not just because of the he said, she said in court, but because George Clooney said that if the lawyer, I believe representing Derek Chauvin, was willing to allow a man to kneel on his neck for the same amount of time as George Floyd, that he would personally campaign for Chauvin to be not guilty. Well, I did it, and I showed you.
Okay, all right. So
Timer down.
Kneel.
Kneel on my neck here, shoulder.
Oh, pause the timer.
7.
It's
very After having just relieved yourself.
5.
5.
4.
We're almost there.
3,
2, 1. And now we beat it by 2 seconds.
Happy New Year.
All right, Token get off.
So, you guys let me know how you remember George Floyd and how you remember the Summer of Love. You can comment below. Which one is a bigger lie? That and Black Lives Matter as a whole, or COVID that you ran through? Oof. Or the election of 2020 that had the freest, safest, most secure election, most fair election of all time? Which one is a bigger lie? COVID, the election of 2020, or Black Lives Matter as predicated on George Floyd? And because we're able to do this, and this is the thing, legacy media had corporate sponsors where you basically have to do Raytheon's bidding. And now you have a bunch of, unfortunately, new media podcasts that have so many sponsors, they also have to be careful and tiptoe around it. We serve you. And so if you want us to continue this kind of content, just click that button right there. Join Rumble Premium. Mug Club is Rumble Premium. Rumble Premium is Mug Club. This all stops without you. It's $99 a year. You get the hand-etched, hand-painted mug. Try it for $9 a month. You also get 100% more show. You get Nick DiPaolo. You get Dr. Disrespect. You get Donald Trump Jr. You get more of Tim Pool. And you get everything ad-free. Also, your membership to Rumble Premium guarantees that we can continue the proper memorials like this.
Wanna go tree climbing, Big D? His face hurts. And where's his speedball? He can't breathe without his speedball. Put his speedball in. Give him his speedball.
Sometimes you don't think about it until you see how it affects real folks. Fat tree, cock vagina, is exactly what I would say if I wasn't here on YouTube. So go and subscribe on Rumble. Same channel where free speech is actually alive and well. Or you can stay here and up the